The golden age of Hollywood was rife with glamour, but beneath the surface lay a web of secrets, especially concerning pregnancies. Actresses often faced immense pressure from studios to maintain their public images, leading to coerced abortions, hidden pregnancies, and fabricated stories. Here are 15 of the most shocking pregnancy-related scandals from that era. In 1935, while filming Call of the Wild, actress Loretta Young became pregnant by her co-star Clark Gable, who was married at the time. Unwilling to have an abortion due to her devout Catholic faith, Young concealed the pregnancy by retreating from the public eye. She secretly gave birth to a daughter, Judy Lewis, and placed the baby in an orphanage. Over a year later, Young staged a highly publicized adoption of her own child to maintain her wholesome image and avoid scandal. Gable never publicly acknowledged paternity, though Judy bore a striking resemblance to him. The secret was tightly guarded by both Young and the studio, MGM, for decades. Judy only confirmed the truth as an adult through personal investigation and, eventually, DNA evidence. This incident remains one of the most elaborate and shocking cover-ups in Golden Age Hollywood, highlighting the extreme pressure on stars to protect their public image. In 1950, Ingrid Bergman, one of Hollywood's most beloved actresses, became the center of an international scandal when she became pregnant by Italian director Roberto Rossellini. At the time, Bergman was married to Swedish Dr. Petter Lindström and was seen as the epitome of grace and morality. Her affair with Rossellini, who was also married, shocked fans and infuriated the American public. When news of her pregnancy broke, it created such a backlash that Bergman was denounced on the floor of the U.S. Senate by Senator Edwin C. Johnson, who called her a powerful influence for evil. Facing intense public criticism and industry blacklisting, Bergman left Hollywood and remained in Europe for several years, marrying Rossellini and raising their son, Roberto Ingmar Rossellini. Though she eventually returned to the screen and won a second Academy Award for Anastasia in 1956, the scandal had lasting effects on her image. The incident remains one of the most shocking in Golden Age Hollywood history, showing how personal choices, especially by women, were scrutinized and punished in a way that permanently shaped careers and public perception. In 1931, legendary actress Joan Crawford became pregnant with a child she believed was fathered by fellow MGM star Clark Gable. At the time, Crawford was separated from her husband, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., and her rising career and public image were tightly controlled by the studio. MGM viewed an out-of-wedlock pregnancy as a potential scandal that could ruin both her and Gable's reputations. As a result, Howard Strickling, the studio's powerful head of publicity, stepped in and arranged for Crawford to have a secret abortion. To cover the situation, Crawford later told Fairbanks that she had miscarried after slipping on the deck of a ship during filming. This explanation helped avoid public scrutiny and preserve her star status. The incident reflects the intense control Hollywood studios exercised over their actors' personal lives, particularly women. It also highlights the harsh choices many actresses were forced to make to maintain their careers. Crawford never publicly spoke of the pregnancy, and it remained one of many well-kept secrets in her tumultuous personal life. The story is emblematic of how Hollywood's golden age often demanded silence, sacrifice, and secrecy behind the scenes. In 1941, actress Lana Turner, one of MGM's most glamorous rising stars, became pregnant during a secret relationship. At the time, the studio was heavily invested in shaping and preserving her image as a youthful, single bombshell. To prevent scandal and protect her career, MGM executives intervened and arranged an abortion, not in a hospital, but on a hotel bed, without anesthesia. Turner's own mother was present, reportedly covering her daughter's mouth to muffle the screams. The cost of the procedure, $500, was cruelly deducted from Turner's paycheck, and she was forced to return to work just a week later, as if nothing had happened. The incident was never publicly acknowledged during her lifetime, and it reflects the ruthless control studios exerted over their female stars' bodies and lives. Turner would later endure a turbulent personal life, but this early trauma, kept secret for decades, is among the most harrowing examples of how Hollywood's golden era often came at a devastating personal cost. Her story remains a chilling reminder of the sacrifices forced upon women for the sake of fame and studio profits. In the early 1940s, beloved actress and singer Judy Garland was at the height of her career, but behind the scenes, she was under intense pressure from both MGM studios and her own mother to maintain a marketable image. In 1941, while married to composer David Rose, Garland became pregnant. However, studio executives feared that a pregnancy would interfere with her filming schedule and carefully crafted public persona. With the backing of her mother, the studio arranged for an abortion, allegedly without fully informing Garland of the decision until it was made. Just 2 years later, in 1943, Garland became pregnant again, this time after a reported affair with actor Tyrone Power. Again, she was coerced into ending the pregnancy under the guise of career preservation. These experiences were traumatic and left lasting emotional scars. Garland, already struggling with substance abuse and mental health issues, became a tragic symbol of how Golden Age Hollywood controlled and exploited young female stars. Her forced abortions are a stark example of the sacrifices imposed upon women to maintain studio profits and public illusions. Judy's story remains one of the most heartbreaking chapters in Hollywood history. In the 1950s, trailblazing actress and singer Dorothy Dandridge, the first black woman nominated for a Best Actress Oscar, became involved in a high-profile affair with director Otto Preminger. Though deeply in love, their relationship was fraught with complications. Preminger was married and refused to leave his wife, and Dandridge faced the double burden of being a woman and a black actress in an industry steeped in racism. When she became pregnant by Preminger, the situation quickly turned tragic. At the time, Dandridge was under immense pressure to maintain a carefully crafted image as a glamorous, exotic leading lady. Her studio, fearing a scandal and the damage it could do to her rising fame, particularly due to racial taboos, insisted she terminate the pregnancy. Dandridge complied, undergoing an abortion that added to the emotional strain she was already under from a relentlessly discriminatory industry. This deeply personal sacrifice remains one of the most harrowing examples of how Hollywood policed the private lives of its stars, especially women of color. Dandridge's story is a powerful reminder of the human cost behind the glitz and fame of Golden Age Hollywood, where love, motherhood, and identity were often denied in service to stardom. Charlie Chaplin's controversial personal life became a source of public scandal, particularly in his relationships with much younger women. His second wife, Lita Gray, was only 16 years old when they began an affair, and Chaplin was 35 at the time. When she became pregnant, Chaplin faced the risk of public disgrace, as their relationship was seen as inappropriate and scandalous. Chaplin, fearing the damage to his career, allegedly pressured Gray into having an abortion. However, Gray refused and confided in her family, which ultimately led to a secret marriage in 1924 to avoid a scandal. Their marriage was short-lived and filled with turmoil. The couple eventually divorced, and during the proceedings, Gray made serious allegations against Chaplin, including claims that he had attempted to force her to terminate the pregnancy. These revelations, along with their bitter legal battle, became a national scandal. The divorce settlement was one of the largest of its time. This episode in Chaplin's life exposed the darker side of Hollywood's control over its stars' personal lives. It remains one of the most disturbing examples of how power, manipulation, and secrecy shaped the careers and lives of those in the entertainment industry. Bette Davis, one of Hollywood's most iconic actresses, faced immense pressure throughout her career to maintain her image and continue working in an unforgiving industry. In the 1930s and 1940s, Davis admitted to having several abortions during her time at Warner Brothers, as the studio feared that a pregnancy could damage her career and public image. At that time, actresses were expected to uphold the studio's image of perpetual youth and sexual appeal, and motherhood was often seen as a hindrance to stardom. Davis openly discussed the difficult choices she made in her autobiography, acknowledging that she had undergone multiple abortions to avoid jeopardizing her career. Despite the emotional toll, she later expressed pride in being able to conceive and carry a child when she chose to, in a time when women in Hollywood often had to make painful sacrifices to remain at the top. Davis gave birth to 3 children over the course of her life. Her story highlights the oppressive environment for female stars in Golden Age Hollywood, where personal autonomy was often sacrificed for fame and the control of powerful studio executives. At just 18 years old, Jean Harlow, one of Hollywood's rising stars in the 1930s, found herself facing a traumatic situation that would define her early career. Harlow became pregnant, but her mother, who was heavily invested in her daughter's success, insisted that she undergo an abortion. Harlow's mother believed that her career was too important to jeopardize with a pregnancy and that fame had to come before family. At the time, Harlow was under strict control by MGM Studios, which ensured that the abortion was arranged quickly and discreetly. The studio, fearing the scandal that would arise from an unwed pregnancy, took control of Harlow's personal life, demanding she prioritize her image. The abortion was performed in secret, and Harlow returned to work shortly after, continuing her rise to stardom. Unfortunately, this incident was not an isolated case. Many other actresses during the Golden Age were subjected to similar pressures to maintain their public image. Harlow's experience reflects the harsh realities of Hollywood at the time, where personal choices were sacrificed for the sake of fame and the control of powerful studios. In the early 1950s, Hollywood star Ava Gardner became pregnant while married to singer and actor Frank Sinatra. At the time, their marriage was under intense public and media scrutiny, and both were working at the peak of their careers. Despite her love for Sinatra, Gardner chose to have an abortion, a decision made without informing him. The procedure was quietly arranged by MGM, her home studio, which feared that a pregnancy could damage her glamorous image and disrupt her career trajectory. Gardner later explained that she didn't want to bring a child into such a turbulent relationship, and more importantly, she didn't want motherhood to interfere with her independence and career. Hollywood studios during the Golden Age often exerted significant control over actresses' bodies, and Gardner's situation was a clear example of how career pressures often forced deeply personal decisions. Her abortion remained a closely guarded secret for years. It wasn't just a private choice, it was one shaped by the studio system's demand for perfection, beauty, and marketability. Gardner's story is one of many that reveal the difficult and often heartbreaking sacrifices women made behind the scenes in pursuit of stardom. Tallulah Bankhead, a bold and unconventional star of Hollywood's Golden Age, was known as much for her off-screen behavior as for her dramatic talent. Outspoken, fiercely independent, and openly defiant of social norms, Bankhead lived a lifestyle that shocked conservative Hollywood. She was known for her numerous affairs with both men and women, and her refusal to conform to traditional expectations of femininity and respectability. One of the most shocking and revealing aspects of her personal life was the number of abortions she reportedly had. According to her biographers, Bankhead underwent so many abortions that it became almost routine. One writer famously remarked that she had abortions like other women had permanent waves. At a time when abortion was both illegal and dangerous, this statement highlighted not only Bankhead's sexual freedom but also the dark reality of women's limited reproductive rights in that era. Bankhead's story exemplifies the harsh choices women in Hollywood often had to make to maintain their careers and autonomy. While she embraced her image as a rebellious icon, her experience also reflects the broader struggles of women in an industry that frequently demanded silence, sacrifice, and control over their bodies. In 1937, acclaimed actress Barbara Stanwyck became pregnant by her husband, fellow actor Robert Taylor, during a time when both were under contract with MGM, one of Hollywood's most powerful studios. Despite being married, the studio feared that Stanwyck's pregnancy could disrupt filming schedules and jeopardize the carefully crafted public images of both stars. As a result, MGM arranged for Stanwyck to have an abortion, prioritizing studio interests over her personal life. Stanwyck, known for her strong on-screen personas, was privately more reserved, and she never publicly spoke about the abortion. The decision likely wasn't entirely her own, reflecting the immense pressure female stars faced to stay marketable and available. Studios during the Golden Age exerted strict control over their talent, especially women, often making decisions about their bodies, relationships, and futures. Though she went on to become one of the most respected actresses in film history, Stanwyck never had children, and some biographers suggest that this early experience left a lasting emotional impact. Her story underscores the deeply invasive power studios held and the sacrifices actresses made to protect their careers in an industry driven by image and control. In 1939, beloved actress Carole Lombard became pregnant while married to actor William Powell, her former husband with whom she maintained a close and complex relationship even after their divorce. At the time, Lombard was at the height of her career, celebrated for her sharp wit, comedic brilliance, and glamorous screen presence. However, despite the pregnancy occurring within the context of a committed relationship, she made the difficult decision to undergo an abortion. Hollywood studios, concerned with protecting their stars' images and schedules, often influenced such choices. For Lombard, who was navigating demanding film roles and maintaining a carefully cultivated public persona, the pressures of the industry may have played a major role in the decision. The abortion was kept strictly secret, as any public knowledge could have disrupted her career or caused unwanted media attention. Lombard never publicly discussed the experience, and it remained hidden from the public for decades. Her decision reflects the broader reality for many women in Golden Age Hollywood, where personal choices, especially about motherhood, were often overshadowed by studio demands, public image, and the relentless pursuit of stardom. It remains a poignant example of the sacrifices made behind the glamour. In one of the most elaborate and heartbreaking cover-ups in Hollywood history, actress Loretta Young went to extraordinary lengths to conceal the truth about her daughter, Judy Lewis, who was secretly fathered by legendary actor Clark Gable. In 1935, while filming Call of the Wild, Young became pregnant after a brief affair with Gable, who was married at the time. Unmarried herself and a devout Catholic, Young feared that the scandal of an out-of-wedlock pregnancy would destroy both her career and public image. To avoid publicity, she disappeared from Hollywood, gave birth in secret, and placed her newborn daughter in a Catholic orphanage. Nearly 2 years later, she staged a highly publicized adoption of Judy, pretending she was adopting a child rather than reclaiming her own biological daughter. This deception continued for decades, even from Judy herself, who only discovered her true parentage as an adult. Young's actions, while emotionally complex, were driven by the harsh moral standards and intense scrutiny faced by actresses in the Golden Age. The entire incident reflects the extreme lengths to which Hollywood stars, and studios, would go to protect reputations, even if it meant denying their own children and rewriting their personal histories. In 1935, beloved actress Myrna Loy, often called the Queen of Hollywood, for her graceful on-screen presence and sophisticated roles, found herself facing an intensely personal and painful decision. While married to producer Arthur Hornblow Jr., Loy became pregnant. Though the pregnancy occurred within marriage, the powerful MGM studio, to which Loy was under contract, considered the timing problematic and feared it might interfere with filming schedules and her growing popularity. Under pressure from the studio, and possibly her husband, Loy underwent an abortion. The procedure was arranged quietly by MGM to avoid disrupting her career and to maintain the pristine, elegant image the public adored. At that time, even married actresses were expected to place their careers and studio contracts above personal life, especially motherhood. Abortion, while illegal and dangerous, was a common secret among actresses whose careers were controlled by studio executives. Loy never publicly spoke about the experience, but biographers have noted the emotional complexity and silence surrounding the event. Her story is emblematic of how women in Golden Age Hollywood were forced to choose between career and family, often under immense pressure. Behind her poised screen image was a woman whose private life reflected the sacrifices demanded by a ruthless system.